as a white cis woman, you would think, hey, you can, we have the highest statistics. And yet if you look at lesbian couples, they're lower, right? So basically, if you get any group of people where you don't get the same amount of visibility, support, encouragement, or simply representation, right? All these things really matter. And so, much like you, Stephanie, the journey of feeding a child has brought so much to my own lived experience of, it's gotten me on this advocacy road, and it's gotten me, I'm likewise became a leader during the pandemic, Low League leader. I work with Breastfeed Durham for the LGBTQ committee to make sure that our voices are heard in these conversations around accessibility, representation, and peer-to-peer support. So I'm going to try not to tear up with my journey, but I will say one of the driving factors for me to want to birth a child rather than adopt, because as I say, when you don't have the right parts in the house, you get a choice. So me and my wife, when we decided which path we wanted to become parents, I wanted the physical experience of being pregnant, birthing, and breastfeeding, even though I did not grow up with it and I didn't see myself as a teenager and young 20s. I'm not that old, you know, I was born in 85, but being in the South in the 90s, you don't see gay people with kids, right? So I never really saw myself having children. I just didn't see that as a way. And so in my 30s, coming to that has all been really special. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this kind of more straightforward parenting thing, I want the whole thing. I want the out of hospital birth. I want the breastfeeding. I'm a chronic over researcher. So I was going to Low League meetings in pregnancy. I already had the book that I was reading because I just had this concept that while it came naturally, it wasn't, while it was natural, it didn't come naturally. I remember reading very early on in pregnancy, you know, animals in captivity, if they did not see the nursing relationship growing up, when they had their own children, they could not nurse their babies. I remember reading a story about an elephant like that. And so I realized, oh, wait, I've never seen this happen. I should probably invest. So, you know, a few weeks to my due date, I was going to Low League meetings outside of DC. And you can go to the next slide. So I was working with some midwives, and I still really am an advocate for the way we birth is the way we nurse. And so I pushed really, really hard for an out of hospital vaginal birth. I did a cephalic version because she was breech all the way up to 38 weeks. So we were lucky enough that we got her turned upside down. She was almost 2 weeks late, which was the cutoff for the midwife. So it was just like to the wire, everything I was working towards. And I had this out of hospital birth at the birth center. It was great. As in, was my first labor, but it really was like the classes had taught me. It's like 18 hours. I didn't need any intervention. And then I had a retained placenta. And I always say this definitely has set the road for my relationship with my baby. So as you can see, the midwives were helping her latch because I was starting to hemorrhage because the placenta wasn't coming out. And so I was holding my just born baby, nursing, while my placenta was manually removed. And so that was definitely a birth trauma. And yet it was a gift because I didn't have to have a hospital transfer. If that had happened in a hospital, I would have been rushed into surgery. It hurt like worse than anything. And yet my child was on my chest the entire time. There was never a break in that bond. And so while I definitely had some postpartum therapy around that traumatic event, in the end, I ended up being really grateful for the midwife that was there. She was the one who'd been doing this for 35 years. She said that had only happened one other time, and she has birthed hundreds of babies. And so it was just one of those things. And yet that happened, and I was holding my newborn baby. So we are home, 6 hours after that. And my milk is in 24 hours, people. Like, there was no, let's slow this. And rather severe oversupply. So then here comes months and months as others who work in lactation support. It did not come down at 8 weeks like the internet told me. It did not come down at 12 or 16 weeks like the LC told me. I was donating loads and loads of milk up until my kid was 2. So it definitely got better by about 8 or 9 months, but it was really me managing this, just this lots and lots of milk. And a baby who's getting lots and lots of milk, there's all kinds of GI distress, there's all kinds of things. And I think my very high needs baby, I always thought it was because of the oversupply. And it was my first baby. And so I didn't have any comparison. I just knew, man, this is a lot of work. I remember especially the first weeks, like my wife spoon feeding me beef stew in the middle of the night, because my baby would not, she wouldn't sleep. Spoiler alert, she still doesn't sleep. So this just sort of set me on this journey of, wow, this really is 24/7. And I would not have been able to make it through without La Leche League, without knowing that I had access to lactation counselors beyond La Leche League, because I really needed that very one-on-one support, and a wife who understood how important it was to me. And just kind of like what Stephanie was saying, just grit, right? I don't know where it came from. It was just something I wanted to keep going. And so me and my little kiddo, we figured it out and we kept nursing. So next slide, please. So then 3 months comes and I'm right in the thick of figuring out the oversupply. I've hit that 12 weeks where, statistically my body is supposed to have caught on. I'm doing all of the things, the block feeding, everything. And I really get to a mental health crisis. I developed this acute postpartum anxiety that after about 10 days of not sleeping, I end up in the ER. It was terrible. And this is outside DC. So I only say that because I would expect certain treatment in more rural areas. In a more urban space, I expect people to be more informed. And so I was in the ER because the midwives would help me as much as they could. I had gotten all these, they were checking my thyroid. They were really trying to help, like, wow, this is really acute. This is from 0 to 100. You're not able to sleep. This is something that you need help with. And this experience has set me on a path of also being a mental health advocate for pregnant and nursing women. And yes, we need special support and special information, but the information's not that hard to find. And yet we still have doctors, ER staff, hospital staff that refuse to be educated on what and what is not safe for nursing peoples. And here I am with a mental health crisis, carrying my baby into the ER room during cold and flu season because we were that attached. There was no, you stay with this other parent for 4 hours while I'm in the back. That was not my lived experience as a parent. So I have my little 3-month-old. They have a suicide watch person in the room. We wait hours and hours, and essentially in the end, because I was just like, I can't sleep and I'm very, very anxious. I need help. They came back with, if you continue to breastfeed, we can give you no medicinal help. You have to stop weaning. You can check into the psych ward, but you cannot bring your baby, or you have to promise you're not going to nurse for us to help you at all. And it wasn't even that I came in with specific medication requests. It was just, I think there are things that can help me. I haven't slept in 10 days. Please help. And their answer was, stop breastfeeding or we give you no help. So I literally walked out of that hospital breastfeeding my baby. Like, it was on the boob, walking out, because that was not acceptable to me. And the midwives got me connected to someone in Virginia that specialized in helping us pregnant and nursing women. And it's been a journey, 4.5 years. I have a different psychiatrist now, and I'm so, so grateful for medical people who are committed to being up to date on research and helping us make informed choices that help us live better lives. Because I think it is unacceptable to tell a mother, you get zero help or you stop nursing. I learned a lot through that experience, because there's a lot more room in there than they say, right? There's always risks, but there's other things. Like, I remember when I was very severe, it would be a certain medication only right after she nursed, when I knew she'd be asleep for 3 hours, right? There is some granularity here. And what I did not find acceptable was that that was not given to me because I was breastfeeding. And so I'm still very passionate about knowing your rights as a patient and not being shamed because you value breastfeeding and you may need medications, whether it's mental health or not. And too often we're given this message that anything you ingest in your body is bad for your baby, and so we're made to feel guilty or like we don't have options, and it's just not that simple. So luckily, I came out of that, found help, really improved over the next year, and continued nursing. What I found, you can go to the next slide, is that I was not experiencing a typical parent-child relationship, but I did not realize that as having an only. More and more and more, I started to see that my kiddo was falling in a neurodivergent umbrella. And it was so helpful, actually, to start having things to Google and start having books to read, so I didn't feel like I was either not good enough or not able to handle certain things, or why was I the mom in the La Leche League that was always bringing up sleep? Can I not just deal with sleep deprivation? And then when I became a leader and started helping more mothers, and in the past 1.5 years, started reading more about neurodivergence and all the different ways, right? Because my kiddo did not express in the stereotypical way. It gave me so much validation for how hard I'd been working, how good of a job I was doing, and no wonder I was having a hard time. And so, as you can see in these pictures, my kid was my little barnacle baby. She went from being a high needs baby to a high needs toddler, would not sleep without being attached to the breast, would not tolerate being around a lot of other people without me. And then the pandemic hit. In the winter of 2020, she had turned 3. That, love helped me during that time. That was probably my hardest parenting time. It harder than 3 months postpartum. I mean, not harder than going to the ER. That was terrible. But just hitting that 3rd birthday and seeing, wow, I'm still nursing to sleep. I'm still nursing all night long. She's still all on my body. Am I doing something wrong? Should she be different? Right? These just big parental things, and getting that judgment, like, oh, even for my crunchy mamas, right? But they all weaned around 2.5 or 3. So then I have a 3-year-old, and even my crunchy mamas are saying, well, when are you gonna wean? Like, you still nurse at night. And it was very hard and very freeing. once I started to get some medical help with her and getting a relationship with an OT and talking to other psychiatrists for her. And so while there was definitely some hard parts about a very high needs kid, the fact that I was able to keep nursing through all of that helped me survive the last 2.5 years of pandemic. And so on our last slide, she will be 5 in November. She will wean one day, not today. And I've really taken a lot of comfort in that, of just everybody weans. And I don't throw around the autism label often, but it is so helpful with certain medical professionals who don't respect me, certain friends and certain family members who are going to judge that she still needs nursing to co-regulate, and that she still needs nursing to sleep. And the fact that she only wakes up a few times a night is a big improvement, and she's almost 5. It has helped me see that breastfeeding has been the single most, interestingly, freeing tool that I have and continue to have in raising a very spirited neurodivergent kiddo. And so when she forgets to nurse to sleep 2 nights in a row, I may get excited, like this might be the beginning of her not needing to nurse. Then the next day she'll have 3 meltdowns, and nursing is what calms her down. And so I couldn't imagine parenting without breastfeeding. And I'm really honored that in small ways I can help other parents get that success, because it's not easy. And we are trying for a second. I would be the one to carry again. And so that will shake things up, right, for my kiddo and for me. But I'm not doing any preemptive weaning, and I'm just, I'm almost 38. Some people think that's old for getting pregnant. Some people think that's young. And so I'm just really being open about what this next stage will be for me. But when I think of parenting a second, I wouldn't do anything differently. The skin to skin, the co-sleeping, the breastfeeding. You just need more and more support. So that is probably my takeaway, is that I was only successful because of support and of advocating for myself. And I think as you have more and more children, it's not that you need less support, you actually need more. And it really is a community that we are raising these children in. And I'm so honored to share it with so many of us amazing people who want to share this information. So thank you for letting me share my story today.
Oh, Amber, thank you for sharing your story today. Oh my goodness. I feel the need to put on my provider hat. Maybe I guess I have both on. I have my mama hat and my provider hat on, but I want to say I believe you about sleep. I too have a neurodiverse child and had Amber and I became friends during that 3-year-old dark time, and I felt just so deeply. But I think this is true no matter what our feeding stories, parenting stories are. You need providers to say, I believe you. Because it feels everyone's saying no, like it can't be that bad. It can't be that hard. But it probably, yeah, I believe you. Oh,
Thank you.
goodness.
It is interesting. I'm not sure a provider has ever actually said, I believe you.
Mm. Oh, goodness. Whew. Okay, I gotta shake it off. Would anybody else? We have a few more things we'd love to share from Breastfeed Durham.